Let's be honest, most website builders feel either way too basic or way too bloated. You're stuck between clunky drag and drop tools that barely let you customize anything, and complex platforms that need plugins for everything and still loads like it's 2005. That's where WebFlow comes in. It gives you a full design freedom without touching a single line of code. It's fast, it's clean, and once you get the hang of it, you'll never want to build with anything else. In this beginner-friendly tutorial, we are going to build a complete website together, starting with an AI-generated layout that gives us a great head start. From there, I'll walk you through how to customize the header and navigation, how to build a fully responsive hero section, add image grids, styled text blocks, and even call to action buttons, and even polish everything with animations and CMS ready layouts. By the end, you'll have a fully functional site that looks great on every screen and can be adapted to any project, whether it's for a cafe, a portfolio, or your next big startup idea. If you want to follow along, the link to try WebFlow is in the description below. Let's get started. All right, so let's start by signing up to the WebFlow website builder website. Once you're on the landing page, the first thing that you have to do is click on Start Building. And then it's going to ask for you to sign up using your work email address, or you could also sign up using Google. So we're going to put in our email address here, and then it's going to ask to put in our password. And once we sign up using our email and password, it's going to ask for a couple of information like your first and last name. And then it's going to ask, who do we want to build a website for? We're just going to put in myself. And then it's going to ask if we're a student. Also, it's going to ask what type of site we're looking to build today. We're just going to put a business site, and it's going to ask if we're interested in hiring someone to build the website. So we're just going to set don't know yet. So once that's done, it's going to ask us to get started. It's going to offer us 3 options. One is the AI site builder, another is a template, and finally, if we want to start from scratch, it's going to offer us to build from a blank website. So since we're building a website for our business, WebFlow AI lets us build a site instantly with just a simple prompt using their AI site builder. Now take note that this is still in beta, but we're going to give it a go for this tutorial. So we're going to select that, and then it's going to ask who we're building for. We're just going to select a business, and then we're going to put in the name of our business. All right, so now that we've typed in the name of our business, we're going to click on Next. It's also going to ask for some details regarding our business. This is what we call the prompt that we're going to be putting into the AI so that it could generate a website. So we're just going to ask it to create a landing page for a cozy neighborhood cafe that offers Okay, so that will be our prompt. Create a landing page for a cozy neighborhood cafe that offers a multitude of coffee options and pastries. So let's click on Next. It's also going to ask us to define our style. Now we could just leave it as is, as AI suggested, but it does offer a couple different options regarding the brand style. We have professional, natural, minimal, futuristic, etc. It's also going to ask what primary site background we want to have. It gives us the options to put AI suggested, light or dark. As for the brand and tone, it's also going to give you a couple of different options, and same with the primary color. So I think we're going to leave it to AI for now to generate what it thinks is the best option for us. So we're happy with those selections. Let's click on Generate. And then we're just going to have to wait for it to complete. All right, so now that it's done generating the website, this is what we have. I think this is actually a pretty good website on its own. It has all of our menu items. It has a catering option, maybe a couple of different changes here and there that we can make. But overall, this is a very good first try with generating a website for a coffee business. But that's not all of it. You could still change your theme from the options on the left side. You have the options to choose your theme right here. You could still change the color palette, the typography, even add or remove sections. You could also modify the images, buttons, cards, and even the roundness of the buttons. You can change all of those from the side menu here, or you could even edit the entire prompt that you gave WebFlow AI website builder. But if you're happy with this, which I actually am a bit happy with this right now, we can just click on start building so that we could actually start customizing this and building the entire website from scratch. So now that we've clicked start building, it's going to take us to the main website editor interface. So this is kind of like the platform that we're going to be working in. It has everything that we need, all the settings, all the panels. We'll walk through that in a bit. But for now, if we want to get started, there are a couple different things that WebFlow does suggest for us to do, like create a site, update the site theme, generate more pages, etc., etc. You can go through all of that, but if you want to customize your website with your specific workflow, then you can just dismiss this from this button right here. Now let's do a quick tour of the actual website builder interface. Starting from the top left, we have the WebFlow icon right here. This has all of our essential settings, like going back to the dashboard, the site settings editor, and all the other settings that's available here, including the keyboard shortcuts, just to make your workflow a bit easier. Below that, we have the add elements option. This is where you could actually add different elements to your website that you're building. As you can see, you can add structure elements like a section or container, some basic elements, typography, media forms, and others from this menu. Below that, you have the pages option where you will find all of the pages that is within your website. Right now, as you can see, you have a home page and kind of a style guide that's just a set of instructions for you to edit your website later on. It comes with the AI generated website, but essentially, after the home page, you're going to want to add a lot more pages below this, especially if you have navigation menus like menu, our story, news, support, etc. Aside from that, you also have some utility pages right here, like a password page if this is password protected, and your 404 pages. You also have some static page templates, collections pages, and e-commerce pages if applicable. So just go through that and see what you need and what you don't need. Below that, we have the most important thing in this interface, the navigator. This is exactly where we will find where each section is in the layers on your website. So as you can see, it has the navigation component right at the top. Below that, it has this section, which is kind of the hero section. And if you open that up entirely, you'll see the whole structure of all of the elements on the website, where they're located, what's above it, what's below it, etc. Now, if we select one item, you can see down here, it also has kind of a breadcrumb style navigator. So this one is laid out vertically, but this one is laid out horizontally. So same thing, you could click on any of the preceding or succeeding elements to go directly to those elements, but the same thing can be found here as well. So just a couple of quick notes in the navigator. The green ones with the box icon right here are what we call components. So they are ready-made blocks or group of blocks or group of elements that is available on your website that it's grouped together to prevent you from making changes to it all throughout your website, or it's just a way of organizing the important elements on your website. But the ones over here have different icons for div blocks, for headers, for headings and icons and grids, etc. So that's just something that's really important to take note, that components are different from the actual elements, but each component is made out of different elements. Now, going back to the interface, as I was talking about earlier, this is the components menu. So this is where you'll find all of your site components. If you group together, say this hero section right here, if you group it together, you can actually make a component out of this whole section right here. So you could maybe reuse it for another page, use it as a template, or just make sure that it's all grouped together and doesn't go, flying everywhere on your website. So you have the footer and navigation components components right here. If you add more, they'll show up here even more. Below that is the theme and kind of the styling options of your website. You have the colors, typography, buttons, images, card sections, etc. And below that even are the variables on your website. Now, if you created the site from scratch or if you created it from a template, variables are basically kind of the elements on your website. So this image can be a variable, this heading can be a variable, this button can be a variable. It's just a specific element that has a specific set of styles and settings applied to it, so that if you're going to reuse it or if you're going to kind of structure it better, than you can using the variables. Below the variables are the style selectors. Now, if you're familiar with website building or WordPress, this is mainly like the classes for the CSS styles. So each of these are classes or IDs for the element styles. If you create a new style or if you create a new class and attach it to an element, it'll show up here, and every element that's using that same class or style will follow the same styles as, you know, what's described in that class. So that's how this works. It's all grouped together in one place so that it's easy to find and easy to customize later on. Below that are the assets. These are all of the images, videos, files, etc. that you need for your website, all stored in one place and ready for you to use anytime so that you don't keep re-uploading them whenever you need it. And below that, finally, we have an app marketplace that actually gives you a lot more power on your website by giving you more functions that you need on your website. So if you have, say, Figma website or layout already created, you can import that on WebFlow using this app. You also have Zapier if you want to integrate a form using Zapier, or it has Unsplash if you want to browse your photos. All of that apps you can directly integrate with WebFlow from the app marketplace. Now, going further down, these are just some simple settings, menu, learning assistant, audits, find anything, and some video tutorials. Now, right at the top here, we have this mode selector as well. Right now, it's on the design mode, which we will use to build kind of the style elements, the layout, the typography, everything on the website. But if you would like to first start with the actual content and components on your website, you can go to build mode so that you could comfortably add the content, the text, and even create more components for your website before adding on the style. So build mode is for editing the content and components. Design mode is style elements and layouts. The majority of the time we're going to be using design mode because it's just easier to use and it's easier to see what we're working with. Now below that is the CMS collections option. We're going to discuss that later on. It's a bit of a complicated thing, but just good to know that it's there. And over here is the insights or analytics once your website is published. Now again, here is one of the most useful buttons on this platform. This is the preview button. This will allow you to see your website as it will be published. So if you click on preview, you will see it how everyone else in the world will see your website, right? So we'll be using that a lot when we're making changes. We want to see how it looks like. So that preview button is really going to be used a lot in this tutorial. And aside from that, we have the pages as well here. Same with the pages earlier. Let's click out a preview button. Same with the pages earlier. It's located here. Another on-page settings menu, which we don't need at the moment. And right here is what we call the breakpoints. So the breakpoints is kind of like which device or screen size you're using. Right now we have desktop. We can use tablet to see how the site will look like on a tablet, or mobile landscape, or even mobile portrait. So this, depending on the specific devices that your users are going to be using, this is how they will see your website. And it's useful to have this because a lot of the people nowadays actually just use mobile for browsing anything. So yeah, this is a good thing to have when creating or editing a website. Now, if you go back to desktop, you could also define target breakpoints or add more breakpoints here, or even look for like bigger breakpoints from here. Aside from that, you have the status menu, the comment section if you're collaborating with other people, the share option, and the publish menu. Now, finally, the right-hand side sidebar. This is actually one of the most important menus here as well, because this houses the style, the settings, and the interaction of each element. So starting from the style tab, you can find all of the style customization options for each element. So if I click this heading, for example, it's going to automatically change to the styles that's applicable to this heading. We have layout, spacing, size, position, typography, backgrounds, borders, effects, and even add custom properties. You could also use this part right here to add or remove styles, like I mentioned earlier. And this drop down is what we call the states. So it has different states like none, hover, pressed, focused, focused keyboard. So think of it as different states of the element. So if you select this to hover and you hover your mouse over this heading, you can change what that heading would look like based on the states here. Next is the settings. So if style is kind of how it looks, settings is how it behaves. So you have the visibility, the heading settings, and even add custom attributes, search index settings, and even customize the editing permissions. After that, you have interactions. This is basically like how it moves within your website. So it could be an element trigger or a page trigger. It could trigger specific animations, specific transitions, depending on how you, the user, interact with the website. So we could set that in here. And notice this button right here. This is the AI button. On applicable sections on WebFlow, you can actually click on this to activate the AI assistant of WebFlow, which can help you generate new sections, edit the copies, edit the colors, the backgrounds, etc. So this is where it's at. It's not enabled here because this heading is not allowed. You'll only see once that you can use AI with this button right here. So that's it. That is the main tour of the interface. Up next, we're going to start editing, customizing, and modifying this website. So let's get right into it. So now that we're done with the tour of the entire website builder interface, the next thing that we want to do is actually customize the header or the navigation menu right up here. This is what every website has, and we should do really well here because this is essentially the first thing that the user sees when they visit your website. So this navigation menu consists usually of a logo, your navigation links throughout your website, and a call to action button. Now, since this is AI generated, this menu is already pretty great, but for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make one from scratch so that you know which elements to pick, where to go, what settings to choose, etc. So to get started, we're going to have to add another section down here right under the existing navigation menu. So go to Elements and then look for Section. So we're just going to drag it up here to make sure that it's below the navigation menu. And I really do want to name this so that it's not confusing. We're going to put it navigation menu 2, and just for the purposes of making sure that the style for this navigation menu is consistent, we're going to give it a style of nav menu 2. There you go. So once we have that section added, the next thing that we're going to put is a container inside of that navigation menu 2. We're just going to drag it in there. And another thing that WebFlow has is it has its own navbar element. So this navbar element kind of gives you a ready-made or ready-built navigation menu that's responsive to different screen sizes. Because if we just put different navigation links there, and if we shrink the screen size, it's just going to display as is. Sometimes it'll overflow outside of the screen. But if we're using a navbar, this is what will happen. If we search to mobile, the menu, the navigation links, turns into this hamburger icon. And if we preview this and click this, it's going to show the menus on a drop down. So this is very good for mobile menus because it doesn't overflow. It doesn't, go out of the screen. It just compresses into one hamburger icon. Now that's what our navbar element does, right? So we're going to look for that. Click on add element here, scroll down to where it says navbar, and then we're going to put it inside of this container right here. Now the reason we added a container is just to make sure that we can apply some spacing options directly inside of this container. It's always a good practice to put your elements inside of a container just so that you can apply styles globally to things inside that container. So as you can see, once we've added the container, there's a bit of space. There's a margin on the left and right of this container. We really don't want that because we want the header to be all the way through the website. So we're just going to click on the container, and over here under spacing, it says auto. We're going to click that and pick 0 so that it's gone. There you go. So we have 0 margins for both the left and right. Now, another thing is that it doesn't actually go all the way through. The reason for that, again, is over here under size, its max width is 940 pixels. So we're going to change that to %, and we're going to pick 100%. So that all of this entire container, including the nav bar that's inside this container, goes all the way through from left to right. Now, if you'll notice, there's even more spacing inside of the actual nav bar container, but we can also fix that by changing the margins to 0, margins to 0. There you go. And as you can see, its max width is none, so we're just going to put it at 100% as well, just to make sure everything's the same. There you go. So it now goes from left to right all the way through the website. Now, to actually start building the navigation menu, we're going to open up this container. And as you can see here, it has a brand link here that we can put the logo in, and inside that is the navigation links, which is the home, about, contact, and this is the menu button. This only shows up when mobile is selected. All right, so the next thing is we're going to add a logo. So like I said, the brand is right here. This is where we're going to put the logo, so that once, as you notice, this is a link. So when someone clicks the link, they'll be taken to the home page, or kind of any page that we pre-select later on. So over here at Add Elements, we're going to look for the image and drag it all the way inside of this brand link here. Now, once that's added, we can now put our logo in here by clicking on this replace image. I've done the liberty of uploading our logo to our assets menu earlier on, just so that it's easily accessible. So we're just going to click on that, and you'll notice it's also a little big. So don't worry, we're going to fix that later on, but for now, we want it there. All right, now to fix the actual size of the logo, we're just going to go all the way here to Style and set the max width to, say, 20%. And there you go. Actually, it's better if you put it in pixels of, I prefer this to be at least 300 pixels. There you go. So it's not as big, it's not as small, and I like the kind of I like the color palette of it, and I like the positioning of it right there. Okay, so now that we've added the logo, as you notice, I moved things around a little bit. I shrunk the logo to about 200 pixels because it was a little too big. And now, the next thing that we're going to deal with are the navigation links. We have home, about, and contact at the moment, which I actually think is okay, but I want to add another navigation menu that says menu. So this page will showcase all of our shop's menus and offerings. We can just add another link here from the Add Elements panel right over here, but to make things easier, I'm just going to duplicate this. So now we have home, about, contact, and menu. So now that we've changed that, there was an enter there. Okay. So now that we've changed that, as you can see, the name already changed here as well. So I'm just going to move that right up here. So we have home, menu, about, and contact. Now, I'm not really happy with how these are styled, so we're going to change the styles of these menus, and I'm going to show you how. So first things first, let's start with the one from the leftmost side, which is home. And before we start adding the styles, just to make sure that we can easily apply them to the rest of the navigation menus later on, we're going to go over here to Style Selector, and we're going to create our own class. So we're going to name this Nav Menu. So just checking if there are other nav menus here, because we don't want to make a conflict. So we're just going to put this as nav menu 123. There you go. So we created a style. Now every change that we make to this navigation menu, we can easily apply to the others without having to do them manually again. So first thing that I want to change is the typography. So going back to the font here, it has body font. Now it's not actually specific font, it's just a variable. Now I mentioned variables earlier on as kind of a setting or a style that can be added to a specific menu. Like you see here body font. This is set as the body font under the font typography customization. And if we want to change that, we could either create a new variable and link it to this setting, or we can just disconnect this and just pick from the options right here. So I want this Lato, and I want the weight to be about 700, which is a bit heavier. And right now we have the color as accent primary. I actually want to change that to just this blue right here, which fits our header, so I want to change it to that as well. And another thing, under more typography, I want to change the capitalization to like all caps so that it's at all caps and it says home. Now, as you can see, there are several other options that you can change here, like italicize, indents, alignment, size, and height. I'm quite happy with the size, actually. That's good for me. You can change the breaking and even add the way to truncate the word if it's a really long paragraph. You can also change the background, which I don't recommend because it's just text. But it's good to know that these options are available here for you. So I think I'm happy with this. Once I hover over it, it changes to yellow, but the standard color of it is blue. Now I would want to change the hover color as well. And to do that, I'm going to go over here to the style selector, click on this drop down and go over to hover. Now, once hover selected, it'll show what the hover state is. So I'm just going to go and I just wanted to change the color. So I'm going to go to, actually, it's not here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unlink from the variable again, go here, color, and pick the dropper menu. And I think I want something like this brown color. So it goes from blue to brown on hover. So I think that works well for me. And now that we're done customizing the home, let's go ahead and preview that, clicking on the preview button right here. And if I scroll over here, as you can see, it changes to that brown color, which I really like. So from blue, it goes to brown. And we're really happy with that. So let's get out of the preview and now apply it to the other navigation links. So like I said, we created this nav menu 1, 2, 3. So what we're going to do is just click on each of them and select the appropriate style that we created, add it there, and there you go. All of our navigation menus now have the same styles to them. They have the same spacing, they have the same colors and font and everything else. So we're quite happy with that, but let's go again and preview that on our desktop here. There you go. And before we actually move on, I also want to change the background color of this navigation menu. Actually, I want to change that to the existing color of the background because transparent is just white. So there you go. Now it blends perfectly with the rest of the page. It has this effect. And since we created it on a nav bar, if we move to, say, mobile, it's going to turn into this little icon that when previewed and then clicked, we'll have this little menu drop down shown on this website. So if we go out of the preview, go back to desktop, there is one other thing I want to do. Inside this nav bar here, I want to add some padding because it's a bit smushed to the side. So maybe I'll add like 10 pixels of padding. Same thing on the other side here. There you go. So it's not too smushed on the side. We still have the logo and the navigation menus. All right, and there you have it. We're done adding our own navigation menu. The next thing that we just need to do is to get rid of this original navigation component. Just right-click that and hit delete. And as you notice, there's one thing that we might have missed here, was just the spacing at the very top. So we're just going to select the navigation menu container and add a margin. Maybe add like 25 pixels at the top. And yeah, I think that's good. Let's go ahead and preview that on desktop. There we go. Looks good. Tablet looks good. Mobile and mobile portrait. All right, that looks pretty good to me. Let's go back to desktop and click out of the preview. And then the next thing that we need to do is to make this into a component, like I said, so that we could reuse this on other pages on the website. So just right click that and click create component. And we're going to name this navigation menu and click create. And there you have it. We now have our own navigation menu component from scratch with all of the settings applied. The next thing that we need to do is to edit the hero section right here. This is kind of the upper fold of the website, the first thing that everyone sees when you log in, aside from the header. So it's best to make this as beautiful as it can be. So we're gonna show you just how to do that. There are a couple of things that we'd want to change on this section, mainly obviously changing the heading, the subheading, and the CTA buttons. I'll even show you how to change the images from this part right here. So first things first is to check if you created this using a template. First things first is to check if this is a component, because if it is a component, you'd want to go over to that component and change things up there. But since it's not, we're free to change this just on the design mode under this specific section, right? So let's actually, first thing is to rename this, because we'd want to keep it organized. That's our hero section. First things first is to change the heading. Now, to change this, all you gotta do is to just double click it, and you can easily change the text right there. So this is what I want my heading to be. Now, it's a little big, because I'd also want to add another subheading right below it. So what I'm gonna do is, while this is selected, go to Style, and over here at Typography, you know, a lot of the settings here are linked to a specific variable, including the size. So what I want to do is click on this, and I want to disconnect it from the variable so that I could actually select the size and change it to pixels, and maybe put, let's see what 17 looks like. It's a little small still. I'll put it 25 pixels. I want it like that because, again, I'm going to add another subheading here to make sure, you know, it's all beautifully laid out there. So to add that subheading, we're just going to go to Add Element, look for the heading, and drag it just below heading H1, the first one, right? So on this heading, I want to add the next part of our hero section, which is the subheading. So I'm just going to copy this from my notes right here and put it here. It's a little big still, so maybe I want to change this to, no, actually, let's try H2, the variable for H2. I think that's still a little small, so I might just change, disconnect this, change it to pixels, and put it like 40 pixels. That should be still too small. Let's double that. There you go. 80 pixels. A little too big. A little too big. Let's go with 50. There you go. So 60 pixels feels just right for me. Brewed just right, served with love, fresh coffee, cozy vibes, and your favorite corner of the city. So that, I think, is good, and I'm just gonna leave this actually there as another subheading. But before I do that, I want to change this color because it's all blue, it's all the same. So over here at color, I'm gonna choose it, that's a little too light, the darker yellow. There we go. So brewed just right, served with love. Maybe also underline this. So there we go, underlined. Right, that looks good to me. This looks good as well. And this one, I'm pretty happy with that. All right, so everything looks good to me right here. We have the heading, the subheading, and another subheading. All right, so another thing that I want to add maybe is kind of a divider right here. Sorry, no, right here, just below the other subheading. So if you look at the elements, there's actually nothing here. That's like a separator or a divider. So what we're going to do is just use this custom element and add it there. And it's actually not there, right here. Okay, so once that's added, I'm just going to go and add a border, maybe 2 pixels. No, not 21, 2 pixels, and change the color. I'll use this color. There we go. So there's now a divider between these two elements so that it's not all, cluttered. Maybe we're gonna add some space at the top here as well. There you go. Perfect. So everything looks great. We have a heading one, a subheading, and another subheading here. So we have a overline, a headline, and this content. Next thing that we're going to do is to customize the CTA button. Right now we have two buttons inside this button group. We have Browse and Find Us. What I want to do is have just one. So I'm going to delete the second button and I'm going to focus on this one. It says Browse, but ideally I'd like it to be like book now. So I have it as book now, and we're actually going to change the typography as well. Over here, typography, button font. There's nothing on the variables that I like, so I'm just going to disconnect it and click on Lato. Maybe 700. There you go. And the button color looks good. I do want it a bit more rounded, so we're clicking that again. And we're going to the button radius, which again is a variable. Actually, you can edit the variable directly, but if you want, you can just disconnect the variable entirely. If you're building a really big website, it's good to have your variables set so that you could like reuse it and make sure that it's consistent. But if you're just doing a landing page and whatnot, you can get away with just disconnecting everything and using your own items. So we're just gonna change this to maybe 0.8. No, so we're gonna change this to 3. And there you go. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with how it looks. Okay, so now that the radius is set just the way I like it, the next thing that I want to do is I actually want it to be a little bit wider. So going over here to size under width, minimum width actually, because that's the minimum for responsiveness. I'm gonna put 300 because I want like 300 pixels. There you go. So that's how big it is. That's the minimum width, and we're just gonna view it on mobile to see it doesn't make. There you go. I mean, it is a little big, so maybe on mobile we'll change it to like 250. It's always good to use maybe percent or VW or REMS, but for kind of specific granular changes, I'd use pixels. Now, another thing is, as you can see, this doesn't look good on mobile. So while we're selected on mobile, we're going to change the font right here. I'm just going to edit the heading size to 2.9. We're going to change it to pixels. Put in 16, see if that looks great. Yeah, 16 pixels looks good. And for this one, we're going to change it to like 40. It's a little too big. There we go. So that's how I like it. That's how I like our mobile view to look like. Go back to desktop. It still looks perfect as it is. So we're done with the overline, the headings, the content, and the actual button. Oh, before I forget, we have to connect this button to wherever it needs to go. So assuming that our footer would be our kind of booking form, we're going to click on that button, go to the settings menu right over here. And under link settings, it says URL, page section, email, or phone. We're just going to do the page section, and we're going to look for, it has nodes actually. This is the footer section. So before we link it to that button, let's give this an ID. Right, let's name that as footer. And then we go back to the very top, book now. And then we're going to choose the footer as the page section. There you go. So when someone clicks on this, they'll be taken to the footer. We're going to modify the footer later on, but for now, that's where we will put our booking form. As for the images, this will work just like any other image in WebFlow. Just double click it to change it and click on replace image. Once you click replace image, you can change it with any image that you like on here. And if you're not happy with the borders, the alignment, the settings, you can go over here under style and change the styles. You can even add a border or a border radius or a background or anything, and if you're not happy with, say, this is a frame, so if you have an image inside of it, so if no, you're not happy with the positioning of the image, say if it's a very long banner image and you just have this kind of frame here, what you need to do is go to size, and under fit it says cover. You have different options here. We'll leave it at cover, but if you want to move it around, there's this thing here that you can do. You can change it here if you have specific anchors there, anywhere, or you could go up and down on here, right? So that's something that you can do if you're not happy with it. So right now, this looks good to me on desktop. It looks good to me on mobile, and we'll do a responsiveness check on everything else later on. But for now, we're happy with the way this looks. One thing I would want to note, though, is the difference between spacing and padding. I know we've talked about it a lot previously, but I just want to make a point to tell you that a margin is the space outside of an element. So if you see here on this heading, the margin is the space outside, right? It gets highlighted when I select the margins right over here. See, that's the margin. The padding, on the other hand, is the space inside of the element. So if I increase the padding to, say, 140, you'll notice that the space inside of this header, this heading H1, is the one that's increased, not the one that's outside. Now, if everything is deselected, it kind of looks the same, but there's a difference there. The difference is when you kind of adjust for responsiveness, adjust for other elements on this WebFlow builder, or any website builder actually, you'd need to know the difference between the margin and the heading. So margin space outside, padding is the space inside of an element. So yeah, I think that's it. That's all of the basics for editing the hero section. Okay, so now that we're done with the heading and the hero section, the next thing that I would want to show you is to actually how to make another separate section that has a grid style and also showcases a couple of the different things that you can do with images within WebFlow. So right now we have this whole menu section at the bottom. It's all right, but I kind of want to have more graphics, more visuals within this website, especially for our menu. So we might remove this later on in the editing process. But for now, I would want to show you step by step how to create another section that has kind of a grid style for the images so that you know exactly how that works and how that can be done. So first things first, we're going to pick a good place to put it in. So I'm thinking right over here so that we could add a CTA again. So from this side, we're going to go to our navigator and add a section right here. So I'm just going to drag it out so that's in another section, and I'm going to rename this menu. So this is our menu section. Right now it's empty. It's small because, you know, nothing's there. But we're going to also add a container inside of that section, just to keep everything organized. And within that container, I'm going to add another div block. So right now it might not be apparent what I'm trying to do, but you'll see later on. So after that, we're going to have to add 2 columns and 2 rows for this div block so that we could display it how we want. We're just going to go and click on this div block right here and scroll all the way to the top where it says layout. We're going to click grid, and it's going to say 2 columns and 2 rows. All right, so now that that's set, we're just going to increase the spacing a little bit here so that we can see. This button, by the way, is kind of a grid editor. So if you click on that, you'll see you have 1 row and 1 column. 2 rows and 2 columns right over here. All right, so you can also change the sizes of this right here. There. So we changed the min-max value so that we could actually see the grids, but we can change that again later on. You can also change the gaps, by the way. If you go back here, there's this option to change the gap for the grids, but we'll leave it like that for now. And we're going to go and get another div block and add 1 in each of these. So be careful where you drag and drop, folks, because it's going to move everything around. So just copy this one again, put it here, and another one get this and put it right here. So everything now has a div block inside of them. And what we want to do first, so that we could actually visually see them, is click on this div block right here and maybe change the background. So go over here where it says background, click on the eyedrop tool and want this color. There you go. Another thing is I want the radius to be as big as possible, as round as possible. So I'm going to put it at 20 pixels there. And a couple more things. I want to add a spacing at the top and bottom. So I'm going to put a 20 pixel margin on all sides. Sorry, a 10 pixel margin on all sides. There you go. So now that that's done, oh, before we forget, I did mention earlier, we're going to give this a class name. So that we could apply it to the rest of the div blocks here. Right, so that's good. The sizes are there. The border radius is there. Now we're gonna add what we need to add inside of this div block. So first things first, I'm gonna get an image and grab an image, put it right inside of it. It's easier to use the navigator here. And we're not gonna put an image first because I'm gonna show you another thing about WebFlow, which is the apps where you can actually get ready-made images, but we're going to have a heading first. We're going to add the heading first. See, it's a little tricky, so you have to do it here. And we're going to use an H2. Yeah, maybe H3. And then go again to heading and somewhere here. And let's use a smaller one, H4. Right, so this just shows folks that we're making this from scratch. So there will be a lot of miscalculations when it comes to sizes and headings, but we'll fix that right up before we finish. So now that we're happy with the content that we're going to be putting here, I would want to center all of this. So just click on the div block and go to typography and hit center. Now the image is a little high up. So what I'm going to do is click on the div block right here. I'm just going to add a padding again, so not margin. Remember, margin's outside, padding is inside. So I'm going to put a 20 pixel padding on the top and bottom, just so there's enough space for the image and, the heading and stuff like that. All right, so now it's time to actually put an image here. So right now, we don't have anything in our assets. If I double click this and click replace image, there's nothing here. Right? So what I want is a photo of a latte, a macchiato, a mocha, and maybe some cookies. So I don't have that available. So what I'm going to do is click on apps right over here. I'm going to look for Unsplash. So Unsplash is a place where you can find beautiful images and just click on install. And once that's added there, it'll launch the Unsplash image finder, if you'll call it that, app, and just click on search and maybe I'll look for a latte. All right, so we have a beautiful latte right over here. I want to use this. So what I'm going to do is double click this, and if you'll notice, it's going to get added right over here as an image. It's still loading, but it's going to get added there. But aside from that, it's actually going to get added as well to your assets. So that's where you want it to be, because we're going to place this with the image that we just downloaded. So double click this, click on replace image, and go right over here. Okay, so we have added the image, but now it's a little too big. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to size, and the max width, we're going to set it as 40%. There you go. So the max height, we're going to set it as well to 40%. Actually, you have to pick percent first. There you go. So that, okay, it's a little too small. There you go. So that is the size, the image that we're going to be adding here. So that's 40% and 60%. Okay, so now that we're happy with that, we're just going to put a heading here. We're going to name this as latte, or maybe like caramel latte. All right, so that is our heading and subheading, and inside of that is our image. So what we're gonna do is we can copy this all the way right over here and just change the name and the images so that, you know, we can add more of our menu items. Let me just go ahead and do that for you. All right, so as you can see, I have duplicated the photo and the headings to all 4 grids right over here, but it has still the same content. A couple of other changes that I made just for aesthetic purposes is, as you can see, there's now a shadow inside of this, outside of this image and outside of this box. You can add that by actually clicking on the element and going down here to effects. And under box shadows, you can click this plus icon to add one, and it'll show you the type, either outside or inside, the X and Y axis, and the blur, the size, and the color. Same thing with this little box right here. It's just under effects, outer shadow. I copied the same throughout the images, and I also changed the size of this to be more of a square under size. There you go. I changed the width and height to be 10 rems each, and I also changed the fit to cover, just so that the image is covered inside of this whole frame for the image. Now I'm just gonna go and change these images as well to the drinks and other menu items that we have. So I'm gonna change this to the cookies, and I'm gonna change this to the crepes. All right, so now that we're done creating kind of the gallery for our menu items, I think this looks good. We just need to change this, by the way. This is a mocha. These are cookies. And this is a crepe. So we can change the subheadings later on, but right now I think this looks really good. Before we do that, I'm actually going to show you another thing. We're just going to add a heading right on the top of this section right here. Sorry, inside of this section. There. Let's move this here. I want it to be inside the container. There you go. So we're going to add a heading here. And that is the heading for this section. I'm just going to center it a little bit, add a little bit of not padding, but margin. There you go, our specialty menu. So I've added a heading. The next thing that I want to do is maybe change the background of this whole section, because it just blends with the hero section. So I'm just going to click on the whole menu section and go over here where it says background. You can pick this. Pick something like that. That color, I think, would better serve this section. Yeah, it's a good complement. There you have it. So we have created a section for our specialty menu that has all of our menu items. You can still modify this as you like. Add spacing, change the gap, add additional elements to this, but in general, this is how we create an image and grid section for our website. And now that we're done with this part, we're going to go through the entire website and just kind of finish up everything before we move on to the footer design, which will be the next thing that we're going to create from scratch on this website. All right, so now we're done with adding a featured image gallery on our website, and I'm actually looking at this, and I think I'm just going to leave a lot of the things here because it is on brand, and the content that's added here is kind of already how we want it to be. Although there is one change that I made is I removed the little menu section that we had over here and moved this down because I think it flows better with this over here, and I removed the little pricing page. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is how to modify this, the footer. So the footer is obviously at the foot of every website. It's the last section at every website, and it often contains a call to action, a link for like contact us, or navigation links and contact information. But for our purposes, I think I want to have a booking form here because a lot of the call to action buttons that we created do link to the footer. So I want to add a booking form inside of this footer, right? So first thing to do that, let's edit this component because it is a component. And next, we're just going to open this up, make sure it's all open there, and we can see how it's all laid out. The first thing is I think I'm going to remove this contact us link. So there is a heading inside of it. I'm just going to take this out there and remove this link. And I don't want this to be a link. I just want this to be something like book now. There you go. And below this is where I'm going to add the form. Now, if we go to add elements, WebFlow actually already has a form block available that you can just add, and it's, you know, a full-on form, and you can just modify it. So we're just going to take that and add it right below the heading that we created. There you go. So this form has a couple of settings, has a couple of states. So remember states from earlier with the other elements. It could be normal or hover or what other states. But for a form, it has a normal state where it just shows the form. It has a success state, which is the message after the form has been completely submitted, and it has an error state where there will be an error message shown if there is a problem with the submission. Also, it has, you know, you have a name for the form, and you have the form fields, and several other settings that we're going to talk about later. Before we go and talk about the settings, let's first style this form to our liking. So right now, I really not a fan of how it looks. So we're going to close out the settings first, and let's go and modify the width of the whole form first. So over here at spacing, we're going to add a bit of padding because it's a little too wide. So that's maybe add a bit more. I want a smaller form. There you go. And I'm going to add a bit of top margin as well. There you go. And the form that I like, I want to have a name, email address, phone number, and a message section. Or like a name, email address, phone number, date and time, and message. So what I'm going to do is first of all, I'm going to remove these labels because we're not going to need them. I'll show you why later on. And then I'm going to add a couple more form fields, but I do want this to be the message field, and this will be the name field. So I need a phone number, email address, date and time, number of seats. So since I want it to be like a 2-column thing, I'm going to add a div inside of this form. So right between the two text fields, and I'm gonna go over here and select grid for a 2x2 grid, and I'm gonna go and add the fields now. So over here at the add element section, I'm gonna look for the input fields. So I'm just gonna add one input field on each column grid. There we go. There, so as you can see, it automatically fits with the available spacing. I think I just want to kind of smaller, reduce the gap a little bit because it looks a little too big. There you go. There, that's perfect. All right, so now, as you can see, these fields actually have a text inside. This is kind of what we call the helper text. So let's add that in first. So this text field first, that is a name. The type is a plain field because it's just a name. And we're going to put a placeholder, which is name, and make this required. Next, this one is going to be a phone number. Type number, sorry, phone number. Also required. This one is going to be an email field. Type email. This is going to be a date and time, but we don't have a date and time type, so we're just going to stick with plain. Placeholder will be date and time. And this one is going to be the number of seats. And again, we're going to use a number here because number of seats, a number. Yeah, that's it. And this one is a message field. And the type will be a plain text field. All right. We're not going to make this a required field. There you go. So what we're going to do next is we're going to style each of the form fields. But first, I'm going to add a style. Great. There you go. And the first thing I'm going to do is obviously the radius, because who likes a square form, right? And maybe change the background color a little bit. I do want this blue, but I want it a little lighter. There you go. And I think I'm happy with a white border. Let's add a white border. There you go. All right, after that, I'm going to change the font. I'm going to modify this, disconnect this, and I'm just going to select Lato for now, and maybe a 700. No, 400 is fine. There you go, and disconnect the size, and I'm going to put it as 1.2 rems. There, that looks good to me. And yeah, I think that looks good. All right, so what I'm gonna do next is add a bit of a margin at the bottom because it's a little scrunched together. There you go. So I think that's good. Next is I want to have a hover effect for the color to be darker when it's hovered in. There you go. So just to make sure that people know that they're hovering over the form field. All right, so that looks good to me. We're gonna go back to none, and we're gonna take this heading H2 style and gonna apply it to the rest of the fields. There you go. All right, so that looks like it's good for me. I think we're gonna change the font first. I think we're happy with how it was before. There. Okay, so notice that when we change any of the typography or any style for the field one while it's selected, it applies to everything else here. So I think that looks good to me. The form is definitely there, a booking form. The next thing that we want to modify is the submit button. Now, right now it's on the very left there. So we're going to want to center that, and I think we're going to change the width of this button. We're going to change the minimum width about 300 pixels. And of course, change the roundness border radius and maybe the color as well. So we're just going to pattern it to this blue. And also add a border width of 2 pixels that is white. There we go. So that looks good to me. Okay, so I want to change the background of this during hover as well to a bit of a darker background. There. So I think that form is complete. We now have a booking form here, and I think I just want to get rid of this whole grid because it doesn't look clean here. So I'm just gonna delete this. All right, so I'm going to leave this here and the contact information and the booking form. So aside from that, we've now that we've created the form fields, the next thing that we're going to talk about is the form settings. So while clicking on the form block, let's go over here to settings. And if you notice, all the fields are already added on here under settings. And then over here, there is a form submission notification. So this means this person, that's me, will be notified for any form submission. You can add someone else, a team member, or manually enter an email address, or you can manage notification settings. But essentially, this is where you're going to see them. Now, this is the action after the form is submitted. You could have none, redirected to a page, or a URL. So method is kind of a complicated thing to explain, but we normally just leave it as is. You can also connect apps to this form in case, for example, you want to integrate this with Zapier or do an automation with that. You can connect it here. You can even add other custom attributes here. So those are the settings for the form where you will find all the form submissions and you can act on them. Now, another thing is, like I mentioned earlier, these are the states. We have a success state, an error state. You could actually modify these just like any other form blocks by just clicking on them and modifying the styles right over here. Okay, so now that we're done with creating the footer, let's go ahead and preview that. There you go. So that looks great. It has that hover effect. Submit button is working as well. And everything else looks great on our website. Now, before we finish up, there are a couple more things that I wanted to show you about the features of WebFlow. First of all, we've been talking about AI a lot in this tutorial, but haven't really shown you what it's capable of. So if you'll remember, this whole website was initially generated using AI, and we just went ahead and customized everything. But I think we're at the point where I need to show you what actually else AI can do here. So I mentioned earlier, this is the AI button with WebFlow, and you can actually use it for sections that has this button. So for example, in this section, we want to add, well, another section. So we need to click on this button if you want to create another section with an AI generated layout. So let's go ahead and do that. And over here, it'll pull up the AI assistant. So we just need to accept the terms. So it's going to ask us what type of layout you'd like to add to the page. So at this point, I think we're going to have, we're going to need to put something like a pricing section. So right now it's generating a couple of pricing options. So as you can see here, it generated a couple of pricing sections that is fitting for our page. You can have a lot of different options that you can pick from here. So if we pick this, it's actually gonna select that layout and style it based on the current styles of our page. So it's not gonna put it as is, it's just gonna style it. It's gonna add it directly on this section. So let's wait for that to finish.
Circle.
There you go. So it successfully added this new pricing option right here. As you can see, there is some work that still needs to be done, but essentially it is generated with AI, and you can pick from the previous and next layout from these buttons right over here. You can also edit the styles or swap styles by clicking on this button. So I think this works. This is a really good layout for us. You can keep it there, or you can further customize it by opening up that section and finding all the elements there and the things that you can actually modify. So aside from that, there is one more thing, which is called the CMS. I mentioned this earlier without getting into much detail. A CMS is actually a collection or a content management system. It kind of collects some posts or dynamic data on your website so that you can just generate it here and add it to a specific section without having to actually edit that section directly. So think of it like a blog, where you constantly keep on putting new posts, etc., but you don't want to have to keep on editing the actual blog page to add your posts in there. So this is where you just type in the post, put in all the necessary information, and then you will link the collection. If we go back out of the CMS, you will link it to a collection list on your site, and it'll appear there automatically once you publish a new item on the CMS. They also have a CMS collections page, specific page for all the items in your collection. Now, it's a bit of a complicated explanation that we're not going to go into further, but just so you know, in case you need something like that, it is available here. Another thing that we want to talk about is interactions. So we kind of just skipped that over here. It's this option right here. Now, interactions is kind of like animations or things for your website, right? So if we preview this website, you notice that it kind of has those slide in, those animation, those movements. Those are called interactions. All right, so if we go on here, click on this container, because that's where the interactions are housed, you can see that it has a scroll into view or fade slide up type of interaction. You could actually customize this per element or per container. So let's find something that doesn't have that interaction yet, which is this section right here. Let's verify. Yeah, it doesn't have that interaction. So for example, I want to have an element trigger or interaction for this element. So I'm just going to go here, click add, and scroll into view. So our action is going to be slide up from the bottom. Yeah, all the settings look good. I'm gonna preview this. That's what it's gonna look like. And if I preview this here, that's also what it's gonna look like. Now I can leave it at that, or I can do the whole container of things. Let's add an element trigger here, scroll into view, slide, and then from the bottom. So if I preview that, the whole entire section actually does its interaction settings. So Let's preview that here. There you go. So as you can see, that's what happens. If you palette on top of each other, like if you have an interaction for a container, an interaction for a heading, and so for several other elements, that's what it's going to look like. Like there's an offset for the specific element. It's not just moving all together. So that is what interactions are about. A couple of other different things that we might have missed in mentioning is over here, if we go to add elements, right here, there's this thing called layouts. They actually have a library of layouts or templates that you can work with that's pre-made here. So you can just find one and add it onto your website so that you don't have to build one from scratch and just, replace everything. And you can also generate from AI here. So yeah, so I think that's it. I think we're finished with our website. We've talked about everything that we need to talk about to WebFlow. But before we wrap up and publish this, we're just going to do a final responsiveness check. So what that means is we're going to go to preview mode and preview this on all different screens and screen sizes just to make sure that it's up to par with what we like. So there you go. This looks good. There's nothing overflowing. There's nothing that's out of place. Right, so I think that works. Let's move on to tablet mode. All right, so as you can see here in tablet mode, there's a bit of an issue with the sizes of these headings. So what we're going to do is go out of the preview, and while tablet mode is still selected, I'm going to go to style and change the size of this. So I'm just going to unlink this just to be easier. I'm going to change this to 3 rem. There we go, and this should be about 40 pixels. There we go. All right, so that works for me. This is still a bit too big. All right, so that works for me on tablet. Now let's go back to preview. There, so looks good. Let's see what else, if everything else looks great. All right, so that looks good to me. Specialty menu scaling really well. Everything else looks good. All right, so one more thing. I would want to center this. So let's go ahead and move out of the preview again. And I think the reason why it's over here is because it's on a grid view. So let's just remove that and click on block. There you go. So that looks good. Let's go back to the preview. And yeah, this looks, this form is a little too tiny now here at the tablet view. So let's move out of preview and go select the footer container. And go over here to the form block. I think it's this form. There you go. So the padding is a little too wide now on tablet. So let's just make it 60 on each side. There you go. So note that this doesn't affect the desktop view, by the way. Since we're on tablet, it just affects the tablet mode. All right, so I think that works. Let's go back to preview. And now let's move on to our mobile portrait. So as you can see here, again, the form is not scaling properly. So let's move out of the preview and go back to our footer component. Click on the form. And right here, we're just going to do 10. Right, and this submit button is actually too big, so we're gonna do 200 pixels for this. There you go. So I think that looks great for our mobile view, or so we could actually remove the 2 columns here and just stack it one on top of the other on mobile. So I think that looks great. That looks better on mobile. Let's move on to the next sections. All right, I think everything else looks great. Okay, except for this one. I think we're going to modify this and remove the columns on mobile. There we go. Let's preview that. So just to confirm, it's not affected on desktop. It's still the same on desktop. It's just that on a mobile view. So it's one stacked on top of each other. All right, so I think this looks good on mobile. It's pretty laid out really well. The nav bar works as expected as well. So yeah, that is our responsiveness check, and that's how you actually modify the responsiveness of each of the items depending on the screen size. So I think we're ready to publish. So on WebFlow, there are actually a couple different options for publishing. You'll find that option right over here, which is the publish button. You have the option to publish it as a staging site, meaning it's using the Bean Cafe, this webflow.io domain, or you could actually add a custom domain by clicking on this option right here. There are several advanced options here as well if you want to get into that, but you need to be on a paid plan to modify a lot of these options. But essentially, if you just want to publish it as a staging to show people what you built, or maybe you could add a custom domain if that's what you like, you could do it from over here. So let's just go ahead and publish this. So it's preparing to publish right now. So there you go. Our website is now published at Bean Cafe, this.webflow.io. So we can go ahead and visit this by clicking on this icon. There you go. So this is now visible to everyone in the world. Now I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. It looks quite professional, but again, there are several templates that you can choose from. There are several designs and elements that you can choose from. You can use the AI, and if you're not too happy with the AI, you could actually just pick from their template marketplace, which has a lot of really great layouts for your website. It's very intuitive. WebFlow is very organized when it comes to variables and styles and elements, so you could actually find a lot of that here. You also have the option to unpublish if you want to unpublish, but essentially we're done. That's how easy it is to build a website using webflow.io. That is the interface. That's everything you need to know about it.